it's the people that tend to avoid conflict that get into trouble down the line. You're frightened that it's going to get out of control. You tend to just store stuff up so that when you finally do react, it can be catastrophic.
And before I knew it, we were having this like deep, very quiet, intense argument in the spa.
Yeah, a wee bit. Yeah, a little bit. This is our date night, Philip. Thank you for being a part of it, Philip.
You love each other, but are you sure about this? Because you have some very different ideas of what you want in life.
I realised though this was becoming a bit of a pattern, and I looked at Luke and I was like, I'm really sorry.
Yeah, I didn't know you were doing that.
And he had no idea I was doing it. Hello and welcome to another Couple Goals Expert episode. On these episodes, we're going to be talking to a range of different experts on various subjects, and we're going to be delving deeper into specific areas of our relationships. I'm LJ.
And I'm Luke. And during these expert episodes, we're not just going to ask our own questions, we're also going to ask some of yours too. So please keep the questions coming in. We would love to ask them.
And please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe across our various social media channels. We're on Instagram, TikTok and YouTube. Just search for Couple Goals Pod and you'll find us.
And today we are joined by Philip Jinadu.
Hey.
Hi, Philip.
Hi,
Hello.
Philip. You're one of the directors of Care for the Family. You're a speaker, a writer, a minister, decades worth of experience counselling married couples. And you're also on tour right now with our new event, couples event, Going the Distance.
Yes, couples event, going the distance. Yeah, I mean, you use the term expert. I think any expertise I've got is just because I've spoken to a lot of couples. I've helped couples prepare for marriage. I've married them. I've been there through the different stages that they've gone through. We've tracked with couples right from, hey, we're going out, through to we got engaged, through to we're getting married, through to, you know, all the big milestones, the first child and on it goes. And so I don't know if I'm an expert other than I have spoken and helped a lot of people, I guess.
You're more of an expert than us.
Yeah.
So that counts.
So on our very first episode, we spoke to John and Sia Bostock.
Yes.
And you've just mentioned something they brought up actually as well, and that was pre-marriage counselling.
Yes.
And for some people, that's not a very familiar thing. It's quite common in churches. But I think if you're not familiar with it, it can sound a bit deep and a bit intense and maybe like you need a lot of serious help before you even get married.
Yeah.
So for those people who aren't really familiar with it, could you explain a little bit about like what it is and why it can be helpful?
Sure. I mean, if you use a term like pre-marriage counselling, it's going to sound a little bit intimidating and scary.
Yeah.
I think when I have done this with couples over the years, we usually talk about pre-marriage preparation. If you think about it, a couple that's going to get married, I mean, when you got married however many years ago?
13 now.
13?
Yeah.
13. Kids. Kids at the time. You would look at the catering, you'd look at the venue that you're going to be using, you'd look at the photographer, maybe if you've got it videoed, and you'd speak to these different people and you say, this is what we want, this is what we're expecting, this is how we would like it to come across. And you'd put a lot of work and effort into the day. And I think it's very normal for couples to do that for a wedding, but it's not that normal for people to put anything like the same amount of thought, care, planning into the 50 years after the wedding day.
Yeah.
So what do you want from your marriage? What are your values? What do you bring to the marriage? You know, we all come from different backgrounds. So the way that I think about marriage might be very much determined by what I saw my parents, negative or positive. I'm going to bring that in. But if we don't talk about these things before we get married, you suddenly find yourself committed to this person with a whole bunch of things that you haven't talked about, thought about, or given any time and space to. So it's a really, really great idea to just do something, whatever it is. It can be simple or it can be more involved, just to help you prepare for your life after the wedding day.
Yeah. And I think for both groups of people, it is really important to think about. Like, say if you're from like a faith-based background like ourselves, we didn't live together before we were married. So when we went into that, obviously it's a completely different context.
Yeah.
You know, it's one thing walking to your student house from my parents' house and seeing you then going back home.
Yeah.
So you were
living
kids?
together.
Yeah, we
were
were.
kids. We were kids. But then if you're in a long-term committed relationship, you're not married, but you've been living together for so long. When do you think about these things? It just sort of happens to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's very much a kind of a school of thought when it comes to relationships that talks about sliding and deciding.
Right.
So for a couple like you, getting married was very much a choice, and it marked a real difference in your relationship.
Yeah.
You know, one minute you're walking from parents' houses, the next minute you have your own house. In other relationships, it's more of a gradual thing. So it's more like you're sliding into a deeper level of commitment. I think whenever you get to a point, however you're doing your couple relationship, whenever you get to the point where you think, actually, I want to commit my life to this person, then start thinking about, okay, how can we prepare for the rest of our lives together? Because unless you go into it with your eyes open, and unless you've sort of talked about issues, you can really find yourselves in difficulty because there's so many assumptions that you bring, things that we don't even know about ourselves because we just haven't asked those questions. One of the things that my wife and I do, and we do a lot of this with couples, is we just sit down and we say to the couple, let's talk about different areas. Let's talk about finance. Let's talk about kids. Let's talk about how you do whatever, in-laws.
The big one.
Lots of biggies.
The big one, you know, how much influence do they have? And then when we're having those conversations, we'll say, this is our experience. This is what we've had. These are some of the problems that we've had to really work through.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you just don't think about it because why would you? Why would you start thinking about where are we going to spend Christmas?
Yeah.
And how much is your mother going to interfere with how we raise our kids? You know, unless you have a little bit of a run-up into that, it can cause problems later down the line.
And it can be really easy when you're in that kind of happy honeymoon kind of phase at the beginning of a relationship to kind of think, well, we're going to be fine because everything's all like
We're
glorious and romantic.
Yeah.
Everything's wonderful. We're never going to have problems. We are the epitome of couple goals.
Exactly.
And then it can just, as things go on, these issues can kind of creep in gradually, can't they? So it doesn't suddenly, often, it doesn't go wrong out of the blue, does it?
Yeah.
Little habitual things kind of come in and creep into the relationship. And I guess preparing and having those conversations ahead of time can help mitigate those a little bit down the line.
Yeah, when you come together as a couple, you hopefully have the kind of the first flush of love and romance and all the kind of the happy hormones and the chemicals flooding your system. And you just feel like, well, we're in love. You know, no couple has ever felt like this before. We're not going to struggle at all. And it can be a rude shock to discover that the feelings of love can go up and they can go down.
Yeah.
And life will do that to you. There's a kind of the attrition of challenges and just the years that can really challenge your relationship. And it's at that point that you really need to know, what have we decided? What have we committed to? What is going to keep us together?
Yeah.
What's the basis of our marriage? What kind of a marriage do we want to have? How much do I want it to look like my parents' marriage? How much do I want it to look completely different to what I had or what I didn't see? So it's that kind of clear-eyed saying, yeah, I'm in love with you right now and I can't wait to be with you and you make me crazy, you know, in a good way. But also, we're going to talk through, do you like to save or spend, or do you know about budgeting, or how are we going to cope when you want to do this and I want to do that? How do we negotiate and all these kinds of things? You're not going to get everything sorted ahead of time, but at least you know the kinds of conversations that you should start to have.
Yeah, yeah. It's just being honest that you're looking into the future and realizing that the terrain is going to be rocky. So you want to make sure that you're going in a vehicle that is properly tuned, isn't it, to what's going on in your relationship? Yeah,
and what you want the same things. So it's a little bit like if you have a bit of a divergence in where you're heading in life and what you want and what you expect, when you're together, you're just bound together with that kind of joy of the first fluff.
Everyone loves the first fluff, don't they?
The first flush
Yes.
of romance. But if your paths begin to diverge 10 years down the line, you're miles apart. I remember sitting down with one couple along with my wife, and we asked them questions about, how many children do you want to have? How do you feel about finance and saving? What about the influence of your in-laws and your families, and what do you want for your children? What's your ideas about parenting? And their ideas were so different that we literally said to them, we get that you love each other, but are you sure about this? Because you have some very different ideas of what you want in life. And you'll go along fine for a couple of years, but there's going to be challenges. And I remember them saying, no, we love one another. We want to do this. And we said, fine, that's great, but just know it's going to be hard work. There's going to be some rocky times. There's going to be some challenges that you will navigate. We're still in touch with that couple. They're still together.
Yay.
Great.
But it's not been easy.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
And, after a while, when you've seen those kinds of things play out, it really makes you want to help couples think seriously about what quality of relationship they want to build between themselves.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And it makes me think. So I was just thinking then as you were describing that, like, during the counselling, whenever you counsel couples, do you get more wary of couples who have extremely similar personalities and get on really, really well, but they clearly have different goals? Are they going to have a much harder time than a couple who have very different personalities, different communication styles, but they want the same things?
I don't know if there's hard and fast rules for that. And I wouldn't want to say every couple has got to go through this boot camp before, we give you your marriage license. I just think that there are different challenges. So if you have similar personalities but different wants, you're just going to have to communicate and talk that one through. If you have different personalities, different communication styles, you're going to bash against one another. But if you know that you're going in the same direction, that's going to help. So there's no kind of right and wrong way to do a relationship. The key thing is communicating. When we talk to couples thinking about building a life together, my two things I always say to them is it's the two keys for your marriage is going to be, it's going to revolve around communication and expectations. Because we all have expectations. I expect that my marriage is going to look like this. I expect that you're going to do this for me. I expect that our lives are going to look like this. A lot of our expectations in life are unspoken. We might not have even acknowledged them to ourselves. They're like unconscious things that we just carry. Unless we can communicate what those expectations are, and when those expectations are not being met, then we'll get into trouble. And I guess, just looking at things before you get married is just part of starting that communication process.
Yeah, that's really helpful. I think as well that when I'm thinking about the couples then that may not have had that pre-marriage prep, and I guess some issues may have arisen because they haven't had that. One of the things you kind of brought up in your event at the moment, Going the Distance, is this idea of a functional marriage. Could you kind of unpack that a little bit to us and explain what does that exactly mean?
Sure.
And how do you avoid something like that?
Functional marriage. I think, it's kind of like the classic cliche of the boring marrieds. Who are they're the opposite of couple goals. You don't want to become like these guys because they just feel like their relationship is functional in the sense of, yes, it works. They live together. They manage to stay together. But you just think, oh gosh, where's the spark? Where's the joy? Where's the kind of the life?
Going through the motions. And a lot of marriages and couples sadly get to that kind of space that everyone is incredibly cynical about in the first place, where once you are this kind of fiery conflagration of passion and love, now you're just kind of silently pass me the peas, dear. And, that whole thing of, are we just flatmates who run the world's smallest play group together?
you get into this rut. And it's because you started with the kind of rocket fuel of love and attraction, but you didn't invest enough in the relationship to sustain it so that it could actually grow, mature, and flourish beyond that sort of initial phase.
Yeah. That relates quite nicely, actually, to our first listener question. How do you keep your relationship fresh and not routine?
Yeah.
Great question. How do you keep your relationship fresh and not routine? Again, something that people don't necessarily take into account when they come together as a couple or they get married is that this is something that will take constant investment. It's like a house plant. I had this thing where I would get these house plants, and it was always a disaster. In fact, when I came to care for the family, they gave me a house plant for my office. Oh, no. LJ knows well enough. It lasted 2 months.
I'm similar. I killed them all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I love this plant. It's gorgeous. And look at it on my desk, and it's beautiful, and I'm not doing anything to it. Partly because I got no windows in my office.
That doesn't help.
Yeah, pity me. And also, I don't really know what I'm doing with a plant. And so I'm frightened that I overwater it, so I don't water it. And it dies. Because a living thing needs to be nurtured. And a marriage is a living thing. So actually, you get married to someone, that's not it. It's not like, right, this is our marriage. Researchers have estimated that any given marriage that goes the distance will have about 7 different marriages within it. You have the marriage where it's the early days and it's kind of the honeymoon and it's all that kind of easy young love.
Yeah.
And then you've got the marriage, perhaps if you choose to have children, where it's all about the challenge and just get through it, grind of little kids.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
I don't know if you can identify with it.
Oh, yeah. Sounds alien to me.
I mean, my wife and I, we're in the empty nest marriage.
Right.
I know I don't look old enough, but yeah, my kids are
No,
flown.
you're not.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
We're a bit slow on that one, sorry.
But, you get the idea. There's different... Your marriage will look in different ways. Sometimes couples have periods where they live apart, or their jobs, their careers are so demanding that you're desperate for time with one another, but it is so precious. And you have to kind of figure out, okay, what phase of marital life am I in, and how do I continue to invest so that I get the best marriage for whatever phase that we're going through. So the whole thing about keeping things fresh and not routine is just an understanding of we've got to constantly invest in this thing. Mm-hmm. We've got to constantly feed it. I don't know if any of you guests have talked about date nights. Has that come up in any of your episodes?
Once or twice.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys do date night?
Well, we're a bit funny, really. So this is probably one of those things, we've talked about this over the years, actually, where I think you would like more of a date night.
Yeah.
But I think I've talked to my friends and they talk about quite intentional date nights.
Yeah.
And they'll describe, we do this and we do that. But they talk about their date nights as like actually really chill things. Just sitting down on the sofa and watching a film together and relaxing. That
sounds
together.
like film night to me, but anyway.
Yeah. Just have an intentional time.
But they would describe it as having intentional time. Whereas for us, that's just, we spend a lot of time together. I mean, we're doing a podcast right now together.
Is this your date night?
This is our date night, Philip. Thank you for being a part of it, Philip. And I think that because we spend so much time together, we just haven't put as much effort into the date night. We should do more. I should do more.
We maybe take our time together for granted a little bit.
Here's the thing. So you're in a particular phase of married life where you're just spending a lot of time together. You work together. You're raising your kids together. The overlap of your lives is very, very strong. The challenge is if you move into the next phase of married life and you haven't built in the kind of habit of intentional time where it's almost like we're not going to talk about work, we're not going to talk about the kids, we're just going to do us, we're just going to have marriage time, that is the kind of thing that keeps things fresh.
Yeah.
And I think whether or not you do a regular date night, which I do actually recommend, I know it sounds cheesy, but I think a regular investment into your married life together is really, really valuable. But even, your mileage may vary on that. So if you don't do that, having regular times when you do invest. So my wife and I, we've made it a practice to go away as much as possible, even if it's for one night. And we did this when the kids were little. The kind of the guilt that goes around.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're leaving our children. They're so tiny. They need us. We're bad parents. And yet this is something that is investing and building into our marriage. And ultimately that benefits our children more than anything.
Mm-hmm.
And that enables you to keep things fresh.
Yeah.
Because that kind of, we're looking forward to it. This is our kind of marriage time. This is us time. We're going to be together, and we'll plan some nice things, and maybe we'll go out and we'll eat, or we'll sightsee, or we'll just go for a walk. We'll hold hands. We'll skip stones. I'm full of romantic ideas.
Absolutely, yeah.
But just
share the same spaghetti.
Please don't take me on a date where we skip stones.
Okay, well, in my day, it was the thing that all the kids were doing. You just put in times that actually you realise, we do love one another. We love spending time together. Or, we got a bit jaded. It got all a bit too kind of worky or parenty. We need to rediscover that romance. And if you can put times like that in on a regular basis, so we just use our anniversary, we'll go away. But then if we can find other times, we'll go away. We'll do something. And having a marriage night or whatever it is, the routines that you build in that invest are ultimately what keeps things fresh.
Yeah, and I can, thinking back to the earlier phase of our marriage before we had kids, we used to, we lived near a canal, and we used to go out pretty much every evening. We skipped stones.
You might have.
Yeah, I might have, yeah. I was looking for birds and bird watching usually.
I fed the ducks, yeah.
But those were great because those are the times where we would just chat, just go on a long walk and just talk and talk and talk. No phones, nothing like that.
I'm thinking back to where we recently did go away for a night for our anniversary, which we rarely do. And we realised we were falling into that pattern of not young kids, felt bad leaving them, felt bad asking the grandparents to have them for a night, all of that kind of stuff. But we decided to do it, and I was like, combine it with my birthday. All I want is let's go away for a night. So we went away for a night, and we had a lovely time. And in the morning, before we left, we were like, let's go down and enjoy the spa before we leave. And I remember saying to Luke, it's been really good fun and everything, but we haven't really had any deep, meaningful conversations and this kind of thing. And I thought, maybe we don't need to. And we went down to the spa, and we were sat in our fluffy robes, and I was like, let's just sit on these loungers, before we go in the jacuzzi or whatever, just have a nice little chat. And before I knew it, we were having this deep, very quiet, intense argument in the spa.
Yeah, a wee bit. A little bit.
An hour or two, but we really got into stuff that clearly we needed to discuss. But because we were in a spa, couldn't have a big old row, can you? You're in a spa. So
I'm just picturing us in the corner shop, the spa. So through that whole conversation.
Not in the spa in fluffy robes.
Yeah, no.
But I think, we should have all our arguments in a spa from now on, because you have to be calm, don't you?
I think, people talk about quality communication, quality time, quality conversations.
Yeah.
You don't realise that you can't get quality conversation without quantity conversations. You can't get quality time without quantity time.
You've got to put the time
You can't just say, right, we got this amount of time, let's get into it. It doesn't work like that. You have to create the kind of environment that in the spa, day two,
absolutely,
suddenly stuff kind of comes forward, and that's the trick of it. So here's two stats for you, just to kind of burnish my expert credentials. But the time that is most vulnerable for marriages in terms of breakup, affair, divorce, is the first year of the first child.
Wow.
That is classic for married couples, for cohabiting couples, because that's the time when you are under unbelievable stress and you're tired out of your brain.
Sleep deprivation.
You lose your identity and, you know, what is this? I didn't ask for this. And who is this monster that I've married? So first year, first child. I mean, for us, that nearly was, we had such a challenging time. I mean, sparguments, I just, we went through it. And I at one point, I just thought, I don't know how we get through this. But we did. But the second time is around about the 21-year mark.
Okay.
And what happens there is that's kind of when the children are self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So either you've got teenagers or you've got children who start to leave home if you've had children. And it's at that point that a couple suddenly realizes, the thing that kept us together was the kids. We stopped being lovers. We became we became parents, parent buddies together. We were just, and the kind of the core of our love was left undernourished and untended, and there's nothing there, and it's too late. And now what keeps us together? And you know, maybe we were staying together because of the children, because of the family, without even realizing it. And now you suddenly think, what am I going to do for the next 20 years or 30 years? I'm still young. I'm still attractive. I'll find someone else, you know. And that's why you need to invest. You need to constantly invest and nurture your relationship all the time. It is the most important thing that you have. You're a gift to one another, and you need to absolutely cherish that gift and nurture it. Don't let that plant die.
Yeah. So how do you practically go about investing in your marriage? How do you nurture that little plant so it doesn't die? Like, what are some practical things that are really helpful?
Yeah, you've mentioned date night. Is there anything else that we could invest in there?
I think, communication is the big thing.
Yeah.
Communication and expectation. Because, and that sort of, it hinges around time. So creating intentional time, carving out time, navigating the various different phases of life. My own marriage with my wife, Kate, we were like you. We were like you once. We were young.
Once upon a time.
We were like you. We worked together all the time. I mean, 24/7. And that just gave us loads of opportunities to be together. And it also meant that we had our time off together. So we would, never mind date night, we had date day. We would spend a whole day together. Well, now she's doing her job and I'm doing mine. And there is overlap of what we do in our spare time, but it's not the same. And so we just had to think, okay, gosh, we missed that time that we had. What will we do now? And my wife, I don't know, a month or two ago, just said, hey, how about we just go for a walk round the block, 15 minutes after we've eaten together on an evening. We can't always do that because sometimes, you know, we've got to rush out the door. We've got stuff on. But we started doing it. Yeah. And I suddenly realized, I think I'm in a new marriage. I'm in the next phase of my marriage. And this is a little bit sad. It's not the most, you know, I'm not in a spa. I'm walking around the block.
We can't go to the spa every night though,
yes,
can we?
We can't all go to the spa, LJ. But what is happening is suddenly stuff is coming up. And actually those arguments, those kind of little quite intense, do you know what? I realize that I'm not happy about such and such. Yeah. You need to give those space because it's the unspoken, uncommunicated stuff that will really erode intimacy and you kind of love, the strength of your love for one another.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Before we get into another listener question, I think it's probably a good time to have a break.
Yeah.
So stay with us. When we come back, we're going to look at our next listener question.
Hurrah.
Where do you turn when you don't know how to answer family and relationship questions?
For nearly 40 years, Care for the Family has been providing support all across the UK through our resources, events and specialist support. And we're not done yet.
Luke and I are so excited that next spring we'll be a part of the event Going the Distance, a new marriage event for you to learn how to invest in your relationship even more.
Plus, there are 2 incredible parenting events and our sellout evening with Rob Parsons going on tour across the country that you don't want to miss.
With audience satisfaction rates of over 98%, our events are packed full of fantastic takeaways, warmth and insight from our speaker team.
For guidance and support wherever you are in your marriage and parenting journey, please visit cff.org.uk/tour events to find out more. Welcome back, everybody. Before the break, I said we would look into a listener question. But before we do that, I just want to shift gears a little bit. So we've been talking a lot about communication, haven't we? Ways we can strengthen our marriages and relationships, and to keep an eye out for those roadblocks that could come our way. But when the roadblocks do come, do you have anything to say about that? When communication's broken down and we're now in conflict, we're in an argument, things aren't good, we're not sure what to do. What would you say to that?
Sure. I'd probably say the first thing is that getting into conflict doesn't mean that communication has broken down.
Okay.
It could mean that communication is working exactly as it should. Because the mistake is to think that conflict is a wholly negative thing. Now, I'm not talking about abuse or, negative, destructive
damaging conflict.
But conflict is a necessary part of any 2 people coming together and forging one identity between them. You can't do it without conflict. You have some people who think, oh my gosh, we just had a spargument, we had a huge row, and the wheels have fallen off, I've married the wrong person or I'm with the wrong person, it's all a big disaster. And it can spook us. You have a real serious, challenging area of conflict, and you think, oh, this is bad. I've made a horrible mistake. Actually, no. Conflict is very often the doorway into a deeper relationship. And the reason that you've got conflict is because you're getting to grips with your different requirements, the things that you're hoping for, that you're looking for, your expectations. And it's part of that kind of 2 becoming one. Conflict is a part of it.
Okay. So we shouldn't be scared of conflict. It could be a good sign that, right, we're about to mature as a couple.
Yeah, you don't want to be scared of it, but you don't want to avoid it.
Yeah.
And only a psychopath would welcome conflict.
Yeah.
But you go into conflict thinking, okay, I'm not going to freak out because this is natural and this is normal. And actually, it gives us a chance to deal with something. It's the people that tend to avoid conflict that get into trouble down the line. There's a famous couples behavioral psychologist called John Gottman. And he's run the Gottman Institute for over 40 years. He and his colleagues have interviewed thousands and thousands of couples over the years. And he was the one that first came up with this term, the negativity threshold.
Okay.
So the negativity threshold is basically, it's what does it take before you react to bad behavior? So how much bad behavior can Luke get away with before LJ
snap?
You snap. You can't take it anymore. Now, if you've got a high negativity threshold, you're the classic person that just doesn't react. You're the bigger person. You let it go. You keep the peace. You don't fly off the handle. It takes a lot to get you riled up. And sometimes people can think, well, that's what you want. If you keep the peace. Literally, what could be bad about that? But actually, it's the low negativity threshold couples, the ones that don't let anything go, that will go at it hammer and tongs about the slightest issue. They're the ones, according to Gottman and according to research, that actually end up having the best outcomes in their relationships.
That's so interesting.
It is interesting. They last longer and they are happier in it. Because although it can be a little bit hair-raising, when stuff occurs, it's dealt with.
Yeah.
if you have a high negative, and if you're always avoiding conflicts, trying to, you're frightened that it's going to get out of control and it'll do irreparable damage, you tend to just store stuff up. So that when you finally do react, it can be catastrophic.
Yeah, it's resentment.
Yeah, it's resentment, and it's just you've not got one issue, you've got 10 years worth of issue.
Yeah.
And so that's why when conflict comes along, don't get freaked out, but just know, okay, we have to deal with this. So we're not going to be conflict avoidant, and we're not going to just think that we've failed. We're going to engage with it. And that takes a certain amount of courage, and it takes trust. You've got to trust one another. That I can say where I'm really unhappy with what you've done, and the other person's not going to take it badly and storm off. You need to be able to know that actually we can engage in conflict together, and we're committed to working it through.
Okay, so we don't want to avoid conflict. We don't want to be scared of it. So let's say we're in conflict, not right now, but let's say we're in conflict.
It's going to be fun.
How would me and LJ do that well? How do we do it in a way that's constructive rather than destructive?
Well, first of all, what I would say is for the two of you, establish what the ground rules are. Because if you're going to do conflict, and it's very all well and good for me to talk about conflict in a kind of idealized version. Oh, it'll make your marriage so much better. It'll make your relationship better. But actually, most of the time, conflict happens when we are not at our best. You're tired. You've had enough. You've had it up to here. Temperatures are running hot. It really helps before you get to that point to agree ahead of time, okay, conflict is avoidable and we won't avoid it. We will deal with it. We'll keep short accounts. We won't let things build up. But when it does happen, we're going to have ground rules. So an obvious ground rule, it's never going to get physical. I mean, that is off the table. It's never, ever going to get to that level. Secondly, we're going to avoid saying personal attacks on the other person. We're going to avoid saying things that we would regret later on in the cold light of day. So we're going to try to keep away from you comments to I comments. So when you said that, I felt disrespected. Or when you did that, I felt that you hadn't thought about me. Rather than, you're so thoughtless, you pig. You never give me what I need. It's more, this is how I feel. So certain things are okay, certain things are not. It's okay to say, when you said that with our friends round, I felt really hurt. That's okay. What's not okay to say is, I should have married your sister when I had the chance.
That wouldn't go down well.
That stuff, no. That you're going to have a hard time recovering from that. So you establish what the ground rules are. And then I would say that, there's this whole thing about don't go to bed angry. In fact, I like don't go to bed angry, stay up and fight. But there's wisdom in that says, actually, when stuff arises, we're going to deal with it. But understand that you're not necessarily always going to be able to deal with everything there and then. It's almost like saying, okay, we acknowledge this is an issue. I'm not happy. You're not happy. We're going to work it through. Get as far as you can. And then say, right, okay, we've got to a point where we're staying together, but we need to pick this up, tomorrow in the cold light of day and carry it on. So make sure that you see things through, but don't feel under the pressure that it's all got to happen immediately.
Yeah, that's really helpful.
And I think the final thing to say would probably be try to find something that brings the relationship stronger as a result of the conflict. One of the things that people will often fall back on is just compromise. Well, I hate that. Well, I love it. Okay, well, this time you can do it. I'll hate it, but you can have your way now. Now, next time I'll have my way and you can hate it. And that's fair. That's not... That kind of brings us back to functional marriage.
Right.
Okay.
It's just like a marriage of convenience.
You're taking turns.
Yeah, we'll take it in turns to be miserable.
Exactly.
So actually, here's an opportunity for us to find a third way. Here's an opportunity for us to do synergy rather than compromise.
Yeah.
Synergy is when It's the best of you and it's the best of me. And it comes together and it makes something that's uniquely us. And that takes time, it takes trust, and it takes a commitment to genuinely find what is going to be good for the other person and good for us together as a couple. So very often in my own experience, it's conflict that's brought us to a better relationship.
Yeah.
Rather than, okay, well, don't do it again. It's been the case of, well, how about we do this? That's brilliant.
Yes.
And then that is how marriage gets really exciting.
Okay. So could you say that conflict should, if done well, facilitate change?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can't, they say you can't grow something without changing it.
Yeah.
And you can't change something without causing pain. Because, it is painful to change. It's growing pains.
Yeah.
And if your marriage is to go deeper, become more intimate, there's a bit of a pain barrier that you get to. And actually conflict can be a friend for you in this, providing you can do it well. Because it's going to help you. And again, it often surfaces expectations I didn't even know I had. I didn't realize I felt so strongly about that. Or I didn't realize I was so stressed about this whole thing. Sometimes a conflict will happen because it's nothing to do with the marriage per se. I'm just stressed out of my brain and I've got a lot of pressure and I hadn't even realized. But now I have this other person that can help me get to a better place and we can take this together. And now I understand you more and you understand me more. And conflict has actually brought us closer together.
Well, just thinking earlier about what we could basically bring up from the listener questions. And I've got one here. Now, this is a bit of a tricky scenario, so do your best. Actually, do you want to tee this one up, babe?
Yeah. So this is one from our listeners and they've asked, how do you know when you're finished trying for kids if one spouse is content with the kids they have, but the other feels that they would like to have more?
How'd you compromise there?
Yeah. Where's that third way?
This one, obviously a question like this it's incredibly emotive.
Yeah.
And it's hard to comment when you don't know the couple.
Yeah.
But I think the general principle would be, in a question like this, which is, this happens all the time. This is not unusual. This is even something that I faced in my own marriage. It's a question that many couples will face. I think you want to take your time over it. And you want to, whatever you do, you have to do this together.
Yeah.
You can't have one party who's just kind of, well, if you insist.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be very, very challenging. But taking time, avoiding emotional, but this, I really, really want, saying, okay, let's look at some of the pros and let's look at some of the cons. Let's look at why you would like another. Let's look at why you're less keen. And let's take our time in a kind of, as much as possible, a non-emotionally fraught environment and work things through. And for me, I would say time is, obviously, there's a ticking clock biologically, often. But I think still take the time and don't go ahead with anything unless you're both completely on the same page. And whichever way you decide, make sure you're completely together on this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you have that resentment of, well, I always wanted another child and you never gave this to me. You never let me have that.
Yeah.
Or whatever it may be. So it's probably the same with all these things. It's about communication and expectation. This is my expectation. This is what I want. Let me hear about you. Let's figure out how can we find each other and hear each other. I remember with me when this kind of issue came up with my wife was keen and I was like, oh, really? Not more nappies. You never do them in the first place. It took me a little while, but when I heard and understood the strength of her feeling, I thought, okay, I love you and I want you to be happy. And actually, this would be a wonderful thing. I enjoy, we've got amazing kids and wouldn't it be wonderful to have more? it just took me a little while. And if you give me the space, then I can get there. And I think that's probably true of most relationships. It just take your time, avoid the pressure, and talk it through, and you will be able to come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really helpful. So we've talked a good bit about conflict, but I think one of the areas I'd like to explore a little bit more is like, well, what happens if you have like, you know, a really big argument? So say you haven't done conflict well, like everything we've kind of talked about, and it's not, you know, just a bit of bickering here and there. This is like, you know, the blowout to end all blowouts.
Yes.
Words have been flung. You can't take them back. The damage is done.
The spa's been emptied.
The spa's been emptied. People have run away.
Yeah.
And both parties could maybe even feel justified in where they're at. No one wants to budge. Like, what's the way forward from something like that?
Yeah, again, you've got to forgive me if I give idealized versions of everything, because, you know, it's nice to imagine that you could conflict without ever breaking your ground rules. But the fact of the matter is that we always do. You know, we do say the things that we were horrified that we said that.
Yeah.
I can remember arguments that I've had in my relationship that I've just thought, oh, I am a horrible person. I can't believe I never knew that level of anger was in me, or just selfishness, or whatever it may be. It's really, really hard. Again, I would say first thing is don't get freaked out, because actually your relationship is probably more robust than you realize. And if you have invested that time and energy and love and nurture into the relationship, then it can take a few head-on collisions.
Yeah.
But you, again, ahead of time, you just need a commitment that we're going to, wherever possible, always seek forgiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a phrase, the first to apologize is the bravest. The first to forgive is the strongest. And the first to forget is the happiest. Again, slightly kind of ideal stuff, but actually a commitment that says, we have gone over the line, now let's look at rebuilding and let's look at forgiving one another.
Yeah.
I think in many cases, you know, we've talked a lot about having couples dealing with each other, but bringing other people in to help is such a wise thing.
Yeah.
Such a helpful thing. And having friends who get you both, who are not going to take sides, maybe who've got, I don't know, a couple of years on you in terms of their relationship, to be able to say, look, we've really hit the wall here. We're this is not good. Or even going professionally and saying, look, we need a little bit of help. You'd be amazed at how you can recover from these things. And again, they can become issues that bring you closer together. I know certain, you know, I remember one time in my, I think my wife would be okay with me saying this, but
You started it now.
we had the mother of all arguments, and I remember just storming out the house, blazing row, anger, and just, I can't live with this woman anymore. That's it. And I literally went to my work office. I had my key. I let myself in, and I slept on the sofa. And I thought, I don't want to be near that monster any longer. This is it. It's over. It's game over. And then crawling back 3 a.m. saying, should we talk? No, I don't want to talk. But we did. And like I said, we didn't do all at 3 a.m. That would be crazy. But over the next couple of days, we worked it through. And I said sorry. She said sorry. We still want to make this work. We're still committed. We still made our vows. But getting people in and saying, look, can you help us with this? Because too many relationships are isolated.
Yeah.
You know, you're just isolated to your own thing, and you're caught up in your own bubble. And opening it up, you suddenly realize, it's perhaps not as final as we thought that it would be. Perhaps there is some hope. We've got some people to help us.
Yeah. There's really real wisdom there, because it reminds me of what Catherine Hill said on the last expert episode. She has, her and her husband, they actually have some close friends, so they've basically asked them, can you essentially be watchdogs for our relationship?
Yeah.
And if you do see something like, you're not spending enough time together, or is everything okay, to come in and give them permission to say something. And as well, getting that extra help. Obviously, you've alluded to, and we said in your intro that you've counselled many couples over the years. Have you got any examples of where they haven't taken the advice and you can actually see the fallout there?
People not taking my advice.
How dare they?
Well, I don't want to be flippant. Like I said, we spent many years, and we've been invited into the lives of many couples, and that's a real privilege.
Yeah.
But it's possible, I've seen with my own eyes, a couple who love one another, who come together with tremendous joy, and then begin to systematically destroy the very thing that brought them together in the first place. And that is when communication is actually negative. You know, we talked about conflict and dealing with stuff. But actually, don't underestimate the power of just being positive about one another. And also the kind of devastating, eroding power of being negative, about criticizing and dragging the other person down in a relationship. One particular couple is actually a couple that I married them, did the wedding, and saw that whole relationship come together. But I remember being called out, Kate and I, late at night one night, come round. And again, first year, first child, such a challenging time. And they're like, please help us. We're just ready to murder one another. And then she launched into all the things that she was upset about him and all his faults. And then he launched back with all her faults. And we said, guys, we get this, but all we're hearing from you is just negative about one another. Can't you, can you start to try and find some positives to speak? That's not to diminish the challenges that you're facing. You can work them through. But unless there's some kind of the positives, you will smother your relationship. You'll kill it. It's a weird thing. It's a psychological truth about humans that our hearts tend to follow our mouths. So if you say a positive thing about each other, you start to feel more positively about the other person. If you can find something that you appreciate, you got great hair. You stink as a husband, but you got great hair. Whatever it may be. And you do have great hair.
Thank you, mate.
It's very nice.
Thank you. We sat here for ages.
Been waiting on that.
But it suddenly reminds you, oh yeah, that is a good quality about them.
Yeah.
I'm still working through the other stuff, but it gives a little bit of oxygen into the relationship. Yeah. But I remember just counselling this couple, and she just said, Philip, I don't want him to feel good about himself. I want him to know that I'm mad with him, so he changes his behaviour. And sadly, that's a couple who didn't make it, no longer together. And it's an absolute tragedy.
Yeah.
And sometimes relationships, they go beyond saving. But I think in so many cases, marriages or relationships, they fail when they didn't need to because they didn't have help, or they didn't make time, or they didn't invest, they didn't nurture the relationship. And they got too easily into a kind of cycle of negative speak about one another.
Yeah. No, that actually reminds me of our early years of marriage. And I kind of started to fall into this trap myself, actually, where I could see all the stuff Luke wasn't doing. It was very easy to see the stuff he wasn't doing.
Which was a lot.
Was loads. And we would, we'd have these arguments about it, and Luke, in all fairness to him, was very kind to me in it, and he was like, I really feel like I'm trying, and did you notice I did this and this? And I was like, no, I didn't. I noticed you didn't do. Yeah. And I realised, though, this was becoming a bit of a pattern, and we weren't really getting anywhere with it. And it came to a point where I was like, right, okay, am I prepared to think that he might have a point? Am I prepared to possibly be wrong in this? And what I did for a week then was, there's that well-known phrase, love keeps no record of wrongs. And I was struggling to do that. So what I decided to do to try and counteract it was, okay, does love keep a record of rights?
Oh.
So I physically had a bit of paper, and every time looked at the tiniest thing, like even just saying I love you, or I'd notice he'd come in and he'd give me a hug.
Cwtch.
A cwtch in Wales. I wrote
beg
these
your
things down on a physical piece of paper, and by the end of the week I just looked at it and I looked at Luke and I was like, I'm really sorry.
Oh.
Yeah, I didn't know you were doing that.
And he had no idea I was
Wow.
doing it, but that was it. That was what ended
And it changes your mind, and it's so
Yeah.
important. It's not to say that you don't have a way to go. You know, I remember my wife saying to me, she said, after 10 years of marriage, she said, Philip, I think you're almost starting to become the man that I wanted to marry in the first place.
You're on your way.
Yeah, that it's like I just had to stick around long enough for you to grow up and for you to get me and to understand me. And there's actually there's so much truth in that.
Yeah.
But a lot of relationships, they fail because we didn't have anything to keep us stuck together while the person became who we wanted them to be in the first place. Maybe who we thought that they were, and then realised, they had a little bit of a way to go. And so being able to keep those lines of communication open, to see the positives, to nurture, and to give time and space to one another, this is how we build relationships that really last.
That's so helpful.
That's incredible. Philip, thank you for joining us.
It's been a pleasure.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. Spargument.
Yeah.
That's one to remember.
That is.
I'm going to take my wife out for a spargument as soon as I can.
Absolutely.
Highly recommend it. So tell us what you're up to now. What's next for you?
Well, we are with Catherine Hill that you mentioned.
Yes.
Catherine and I are going on the road with our Going the Distance tour. So that is coming to hopefully a town near you. But it's an amazing opportunity that we have. We give to couples a time where you can come out for an evening. There's no group work. There's no embarrassment. But there's just some principles and keys to building a relationship that will go the distance and something that will encourage you in your marriage. And if you're looking for something that will actually be a positive in building a good couple relationship, come to Going the Distance. We'll see you there.
Perfect. Thank
Excellent
you.
plug. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody who has tuned in. We've had an amazing time, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been great, really helpful. And if you've been listening, please don't forget to like, follow, subscribe across our social media channels. Please share the episode with your friends. We'd love this to go out to everybody, and tune in next time.
Absolutely. And don't forget, for these expert episodes, we do need your questions to ask our experts. So please keep them coming in, and we'll see you in the next one.
Couple Goals was brought to you by Care for the Family. We produce shows, resources and events to help support family life across the UK. And we couldn't do any of that without the generous support of thousands of people just like you. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please consider partnering with us in our mission. If you'd like to do so, just head to cff.org.uk/donate to find out more. Thanks again for being with us, and we'll see you next time.